Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining this session. My name is Arunima, and I'm a senior business analyst working with Srijan Technologies. Today, we are going to be talking about building next-gen enterprise learning experiences by leveraging the power of social media. A quick look at our agenda. We'll be taking a brief look at the global e-learning trends, how e-learning has evolved over the past decades. We'll then dig deeper into self-paced enterprise e-learning. A quick look after that on what social content curation means and some related stats. Key drivers for enterprises to leverage social content curation in e-learning. And lastly, we will wrap up with looking at the business value that social content curation offers to organization and enterprise e-learning applications. E-learning has been around since the 1990s. In 2019, the global e-learning market had already surpassed 200 billion, and it is set to hit 375 billion by 2026, recording an anticipated growth of over 8% CAGR. Some of the key drivers of this growth are better network connectivity available globally now, on-demand content that is served in the form of voice search, in the form of chatbots, that enable learners to get to their relevant content very quickly and very easily. Offline content availability, which is enabled through technology enablers, especially useful in areas that have, areas globally that have low bandwidth issues. The major chunk of this growth in the e-learning market is from video conferencing. It is anticipated to grow to $50 billion by 2026 with a CAGR of 19%. Again, the technology enablers are a major driver of this growth. Availability of open source technologies, availability of cloud storage, integration of AR and VR into conferencing for 3D experiences, AI-enabled solutions to improve the video quality and user interactions, and of course, lockdowns. In light of these recent events, this growth only seems set to accelerate. Enterprises are no different. Organizations are increasingly seeing value in investing in e-learning and internal knowledge portals. 72% of organizations actually believe that e-learning puts them at a competitive advantage. Hence, they're ready to make this investment in building large-scale enterprise-wide e-learning solutions, e-learning applications, and knowledge portals. Because for every dollar organizations spend on e-learning, they make back $30 in employee productivity. All in all, it shows an early adaptation of enterprises towards e-learning and knowledge portals. Some of the must-have success factors that enterprises look to incorporate into their e-learning systems are a learner-centered design, which helps in ease of use by their employees. They largely look to also engaging their employees by providing them relevant and directly related content to their daily life jobs, the learning materials that are relevant to what they do in their day-to-day jobs. A large number of organizations are also want to take advantage of important company events like new product launches, like news, to enforce their branding and create an awareness of their branding via their e-learning portals. Many organizations also look at their e-learning portals, e-learning applications as a way of changing the organizational culture. This is one of the major success factors that a number of organizations are now looking at. They want to emphasize the positive outcomes and success stories in the organization. They want to help employees look at these, discover these success stories in their organization using these portals. There is a link on the slide to the complete research paper if you want to take a look at all the success factors that enterprises are looking to incorporate into their e-learning systems. In spite of enterprises looking at systems that provide a learning to all their employees, actually the self-paced e-learn and all these promising trends that we saw in the past slides, actually the self-paced e-learning market is on a decline. And a lot of people actually don't complete their courses. They register for a course, but they never end up completing it. Enterprises and e-learning providers, as a result, are actually experimenting with new and new methods to keep people engaged, to keep people learning and coming back to their platforms, making sure that the courses that they sign up for, they actually complete it. Eventually, in context of this discussion, enterprises are specifically looking for systems that can provide incentives and mechanisms for their employees to keep engaging with the platform and keep coming back to it. Some of the engagement drivers, if we look at an enterprise e-learning platform, some of the engagement drivers to tackle this problem of a decline in self-paced learning are incentivization in the form of rewards, in the form of points, gamification, micro-learning, peer-to-peer collaboration, social learning, and on-demand content. We would be focusing here on social learning and peer-to-peer collaboration, specifically the engagement, person-to-person engagement aspect of self-paced e-learning and engagement drivers. When we look at social learning has always been a part of conservative learning processes since ages. And when we translate that to a digital world, we actually come up with different kinds of mechanisms of engaging people socially, like commenting, like discussion forums, tagging other people via comments, via tags, right? Following people, being able to collaborate in their study groups, in their own user groups, being able to give a feedback. And the piece that we are going to be discussing, focusing mainly today on, is curated social content, because it encapsulates an essence of all of these other handles as well. Social learning, in fact, has been identified among the 5 major e-learning trends in 2020 to 2025. Briefly looking at what we mean by social content curation. Social content curation is an established method of engaging users using user-generated content. So it's content that in a large scenario, in a large world setting, people like you and me are going to create, and content that you create, I would consume, and I create and you consume it. Social content curation and leveraging user-generated content has actually proven to have great results. L'Oreal had actually recorded a 400% increase in the number of mentions it got on Instagram corporate account using user-generated content. Campaigns that use user-generated content actually clearly show in their reports that consumers are more likely to make a purchase decision based on a recommendation by someone they know or someone they can identify with. It could be an influencer, it could be just a family member, it could be somebody in their peer group. 44% are actually, and this is of course very specific to a beauty industry scenario, but 44% of users are actually likely to make a purchase decision based on a social media post by just looking, because they came across it, they might have come across it on social media, they are likely to make this decision. Social media, the pivot of this discussion, the social media we see is hence a critical part of a consumer's journey. Looking at how social content curation now maps to a scenario of e-learning, how do enterprise e-learning systems leverage content from social media? And what are the key drivers that drive enterprises to do so? When we talk about enterprises leveraging content from social media, we're talking of curated content, which could be user generated. It could be generated by influencers. It could be generated by similar organizations and thought leaders in the same domain. All this content curated into a certain stream, into a certain feed, and then displayed on an application, which could be an app, a mobile app, which could be a web platform, is what we are referring to as social content curation or curated social content in an enterprise e-learning system. Adding this kind of the key drivers, looking at the key drivers that drive people to leverage social content curation, it enables enterprises to add a richer content experience. Enterprises can curate news, product launches, latest trends, and so on and so forth, which can be showcased as supplementary reading along with all their regular course material. The already existing adaptation, here we're leveraging the already existing adaptation of users towards social media to drive them to engage more and read more on the e-learning platform. So also this content is always current. Since it's not manually being created each time, it's being curated from a very live and a living social feed. This curating such content always has a much faster turnaround time than having to create the courses about the latest and greatest in the industry, such as trends, such as new technologies, etc. All of this content that gets curated is actually adding to a much richer, much updated content experience on the e-learning platform. Of course, this has to be supplemented with the actual course materials, but organizations do look to balance both of these to provide a more holistic experience for their employees. Some of the other key drivers for enterprises to leverage social content curation is this content can be highly localized and highly personalized. When we say localized, it means they could be using content that has been generated by influencers, by thought leaders in their particular market, in their particular region. So if you are an enterprise having a presence in 10 different countries, you may not want to give learners content that's not relevant to them. You would want to give them learning content which is relevant to their own market and region. And also make this content global. You would cater to users in different regions and languages by leveraging the content from local handlers. So this makes the content more relevant, more global to users in different regions and different languages. Personalized content is another key driver because enterprises For enterprises to make an investment on creating bespoke content for every learning vertical might be a very heavy investment, investment. Instead, if they balance it, balance the original content with different curated content streams for every line of business, it helps them provide personalized, more relevant content to to employees of a particular vertical. So enterprise learning systems then could have content that's common across all verticals, and then curated content which is specific for every line of business. Another very important aspect of social content, incorporating curated social content on an e-learning applications, helping them connect, helping build that customer connect, helping the enterprise learners understand who are the people they are serving, answer the main questions, right? The who, the how, and the where. Who are the people they serve? Who are the end customers using the enterprise's products or the services? How are customers and influencers using their products, which provides the employees a perspective on what is their how, whatever they are working on, how is it that it influences the end customer. A use case understanding, which means where are their products or services being used. And on the right, the example is from Starbucks. Every holiday season, they run this campaign where they ask you to scribble on their cup. And if they like your design, they put it on their cup, right? So this is a great, so putting something like this on let's say the Starbucks enterprise learning system would actually help the employees relate with their customer. It would help them build that customer connect, because maybe not everybody goes onto Instagram to check this out, right? So where are their products or services being used? The use case understanding is also something that gets built by leveraging this content. And one very key and very critical aspect is the proof of quality of product or service, a real-time feedback that one gets by looking at this content on their e-learning site, because these content are actually being pulled from social media. It's what people are really saying about the quality of product or service. All of this kind of customer connect is something that can be established by incorporating the user-generated content into an enterprise e-learning solution. What is the business value for enterprises to build, to incorporate the user-generated content into their e-learning system? One, as we've been talking about all this while, is the engagement factor. It leads to increased interaction with the content on portal, because unlike a very instructor-led, instructor-driven course model, this is more a pull-based model. So instead of a push-based model where it's an instructor who has asked asked an employee to take a course, this is the employee asking for more content because it's engaging. And of course, because it's engaging, the time on site increases. So overall, the engagement on this content goes up. One major key factor, and we have touched upon it very briefly in the previous slides, is the reduced cost of creating content. Typically, for an enterprise to develop 1 hour of edited and ready-to-use e-learning material ranges anywhere between $10,000 to $20,000, factoring in all costs, of course, the cost of resources, the cost of manpower, all of it. And for one ready-to-use piece of content, it normally takes anywhere between 10 to 20 days, depending on the complexity of the course, to develop. This versus the cost of content curation, which is basically the cost of the tool that you pay the social content curation tool, and the 1 or 2 resources that you, or people you would ask, you make them sit and curate content from around the web for you. So there is a huge drastic reduction in the cost of creating the content, which is a very big business value driver for enterprises to adapt this technique, this content technique. All of this, in a nutshell, shows a very straightforward relation between being able to increase engagement at a reduced cost by using social content. Very briefly, a quick look at how, how are you going to actually implement it, right? So there are multiple content curation tools. Here we are talking of a scenario where you have an application maybe running on an existing CMS or an LMS. The application will store a mapping of the pages or the content types on which you want to, where you want to display social content curated feeds, and the corresponding stream ID. Now, what's a stream ID? A stream ID is a chunk or a product feed, a content feed that you create on a social content curation tool like a Olapic or like Curator. The curated content would be organized into different streams on their content dashboards, on the tool's dashboard. Each of these streams would have a stream ID, which gets stored in your which would be stored in your application backend. When a user is using a particular page, when the user hits a particular page on the e-learning portal, the corresponding stream ID is sent to the curation tool, and you would get the corresponding content feed. So this would enable you to actually, let's say, showcase HR specific content from social media on the HR, along with the HR related courses. Maybe you've got a vertical for data science. You can actually show content curated from around the internet on data science and show that with your data science courses. So you could set up multiple streams in this manner, and you leverage those across different sections of your application, of your e-learning site or your knowledge portal. These curation tools in the backend would be connecting to the different social media channels based on certain criteria that you would configure on the tool, like a handle or a hashtag, and that content gets passed on to the application. So this, in a nutshell, is how an application would actually leverage, an e-learning platform would actually leverage social content to improve the experience on the e-learning portal. This is basically an overview of how we would leverage social media to increase engagement on an e-learning platform. For any questions, you could reach out to me on via email or via my LinkedIn handle, and I'd be very happy to take your questions. This is an area of growth, and if you have any ideas of how, or any use cases of how you have implemented this in your organization, I'd be very happy to discuss that as well. Thank you so much for your time, and hope to hear from you soon.